Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Technique Tuesday. My name is Ali Board and I am currently broadcasting live on my Facebook page, Alison C. Board Artist. You're all very welcome. I can see already that there's lots of comments coming in on the Facebook page, but I just need to remind you that, of course, you might be watching this via catch-up on my blog, or you might be watching it on YouTube. If you would like to see how the comments came in, pop over to Facebook and you'll get to read them in real time. Now, I have some good mornings to say. There's lots of people in the room already, which is lovely. Thank you very much for joining me. Ali WT, good morning. Ali D, gosh, 3 Alis all at once. Joe, Sylvia, Rabina, Sue, Rosie, Jilly, Pen, Linda. I know, Linda, where's the sun gone? No, not good enough, is it? Joe Lewis, good morning. Gwenda, Jeanette, Janice, Anne, Steph, Barbara, Joe, Sandy, Beatrice, good morning, B. Brenda, Anne, who else have we got? Mick, good morning, our resident poet extraordinaire. Tara, good morning to you, my lovely. Who else we got? Joy. Vivian, Jackie, Rosemary, Mary, Chris, Pam, Arlene, Sandy, yeah, it's dreary in Dorset too, if that's any consolation at all. Marion, Linda in the USA, Julie, Sally, good morning to you. Good morning, Paula. You are all very, very welcome. My apologies if I have missed your hello as it came in. Now, you might notice already I got the tech to work this week. On the live stream, I have managed to include a bit of a poll this morning. So you might need to go back to the footage because I can't tell where you're seeing it, if you're watching on a phone or an iPad. If you're watching on a desktop, there should be a little poll there that says, what are your favourite yellows in watercolour? And you can click on your favourite yellows. It's just to get a discussion going, really, to see what yellows are your choice. I find it really interesting because I'm not a yellow type of person. I don't paint in yellow very often. I'm leaning more towards orange now. I'm getting used to orange, but yellow is quite a struggle for me. So it's good to know what it is that you paint in ordinarily. Who else have we got in the room? Jean, good morning. Jean, Jean and Terry. Jean is saying that she's got no sound. I'm assuming that everyone else has got sound, but if you wouldn't mind double checking for me, that would be good. Carol, good morning. Thank you very much for tuning in. Pippa down the road, morning. Debbie, Anne, Denise, the lovely Denise Allen is in the room. That's very kind of you to join me. Thank you very much. Amanda, Jill, Lynn, Linda, Caroline, Chris, Kareen, Martina, lots of people are voting already. Excellent. Heather, Chris, thank you. Sound is coming through. Jean is saying that she found the button. Always good to find the button, isn't it? Technology full of too many buttons, if you ask me. So that's good to know. Now, we're going to be working a little bit more on the Daffodil project. Loads of you have been over to the website and downloaded the photograph that I'm going to be using for today. So thank you very much for that. I'm hoping as well, because people were very generous and they shared their daffodil photographs over on the Learning to Paint page. Thank you very much. 2 Anns, if I remember correctly, Anne Jean and Anne G and Anne B. If you've posted your daffodil photos, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Who else? Lots of people popping up. Barbara, Hilary, Valerie. Morning, Val. Tracy. But I have some really exciting news. Well, I think it's exciting. It's exciting for me. So you may recognise this, A Beginner's Guide to Watercolour in Mixed Media. This is my first book that got published a year ago now. Who can believe that? Published by the amazing team at Search Press, and is a real guide to starting off with watercolour, including lots of other things. But I had a piece of news this week, and then some things turned up on my doorstep. And it's been published in French. I didn't think I translated into French, but someone on the Search Press team has done an incredible job of translating everything that I rattle on about into French. Same book, different cover, but it is all in French. And I have to say, I sound a lot more sophisticated in French. If only I sounded that sophisticated in real life, it'd be marvellous, wouldn't it? So that's my bit of good news. I was so excited, Search Press team. Thank you very, very much for sending me a copy of that through. It was so funny to see. It made me chuckle. Now, shall we do a quick recap on the project that we've been working on, and then we can get started. Lots of people answering in French. I very, very few words I speak in French, so my apologies if I can't translate. Mick has already written us a beautiful poem this morning. Goodness me, you're all on fire today. Now let's take you and do a recap of the Daffodil project. So here is the piece of reference material that I will be working from even. This is a photograph I took myself, like I was saying last week. It's not the greatest of photographs, but what it does do is show you the extreme lights and darks. Now, we were having quite the discussion last week about what makes a good photograph, what doesn't make a good photograph. So if you haven't seen last week's demonstration, pop back over to the blog and watch that first. I mean, stay tuned and have a coffee, but if you want to really get it from start to finish, then watch that one first, and then you can come back and you can follow along. Don't panic if you haven't practiced. I'm certainly not going to finish this painting today. There's lots to do on this painting and lots to share with you. Thank you to everybody who voted on the materials that they would like to see me use. Quite the eclectic mix, it has to be said. My apologies if I don't get to everything, but I'm going to try really hard to include as much as I possibly can. The things I'm definitely going to include today are going to be oil pastel, because there was quite a call for oil pastels, and Brusho, and a bit of watercolour in there for good measure too. So let's take you to the overhead camera, and you can see what I am rabbiting on about. So last week I showed you a few examples of previously executed daffodil paintings. So here we have one on black surface. I know that some of you were very enthusiastic about black and metallic colours that you can use here. I've used Pearlex on this. You can see that kind of shimmer and shine going on. Here is one that you might recognise from the book. This was discussing more about the application of colour. So we've got a bit of masking out, a bit of wet into wet, and a bit of negative painting here. I'm running out of desk space, it has to be said. Let's shove it on the floor. And then here's one that I've used several times and going to form the basis of what we do today as well. So this is oil pastel, chalk pastel, and watercolour all on a surface. So we're going to use some of the techniques from this, and we're going to upgrade them quite significantly. So let's get started, shall we? Honestly, I've already got Brusho on my piece of watercolour paper. That stuff migrates everywhere, doesn't it? So let us take you through this project from start to finish. We'll see how far we get today, and then we will continue with it next week. So I have a piece of watercolour paper here. This is Saunders Waterford, £140, 300 gram. This is a knot surface, N-O-T. And what does that mean? Technically, it should be called cold pressed, but it's called knot as a sort of Goldilocks principle, because it's not smooth and it's not rough. It's somewhere in the middle. And it's one of my favourite papers. They come in two different whites. It comes in traditional white and it comes in high white or extra white. Morning, Rach. And I'm using the extra white today just simply because it was the first one I stuck my hand on. And one of the things that you may notice is that I absolutely hate sticking my piece of paper down, because I think it restricts it, and you can have terrible trouble with it buckling if you don't wet it evenly. So I keep it free and clear, and that way I can dry the front and the back and everything. Now, I just want to address something really, really quickly, because somebody's put it into the comments about alcohol inks. Marion is saying, I'd love to see something with alcohol inks. And Angie has said Ali Hargreaves. Yes, Ali Hargreaves is doing a course on alcohol inks. You can go over and sign up to that right now. You could also go over to the SAA website and see the work that Anita Pounder has done with alcohol inks. Marion is also asking, I'd love to know if you could only take one supply medium with you, which would it be? That would have to be watercolour. Every day of the week, watercolour, because watercolour is the most fantastically frustrating, interesting, full of life type of medium. So that's why it forms the basis of all my painting techniques. So we've got our piece of watercolour paper, and I'm going to do a transfer. I'm going to use the photograph that I had, and I'm going to do a transfer with trace down. Here's the photograph. Now you might wonder why it's got writing all over it. If you want to know exactly why it's got writing all over it, then you're going to have to revisit last week's Technique Tuesday. So I've got some bits of framers tape here. Could use masking tape or frog tape, anything like that. I'm just taking a little bit of the sticky away by sticking my paws all over it. And then I'm going to raise it up the piece of paper. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I doing a portrait flower on a landscape piece of paper? And I'm doing that because for the purposes of filming, it's much easier for you to see it this way on than it is for you to see my piece of paper that way on. So that is the only reason I'm doing it. If you are following along with this project, you can do it whatever way you like, whatever way you like. So I'm going to raise it up the page a little bit to give a bit of room and to give it a bit of space to go into. And then I'm going to hinge it down on one side with my framers tape. I'm going to take a sheet of trace down. This is the graphite carbon paper, for those of you that remember handwriting carbon and typewriting carbon paper. This is the drawing equivalent. I've got graphite on the back, and you probably notice it has two different colours. It's got a pale side and a dark side. So it's going to go dark side down underneath. And then I'm going to grab a biro, because that is my particular weapon of choice. I think it creates a better pressure through. What we're going to do is draw back over this, and it's going to press through the trace down onto my watercolour paper underneath. And as you can see, preparing the good old glasses, because otherwise I won't be able to see a thing. I have to peer over the top of them like some 40s school teacher. Right, let's check my pen is working. This is a purple pen, not only because there's a significant link between myself and the colour purple, but it also means that I can see it when I have gone over my photocopy. So it means that I'm not constantly guessing which bits I've done and which bits I haven't. Now, one thing I always try to do right at the beginning is to lift up my trace down to absolutely double check that it's coming through okay, so that I've got the pressure absolutely fine. Now, let's have a look at these petals. So some of them bend towards me, some of them bend away from me, some of them have kind of got a crease in them. I'm not looking for too much detail. I don't want to get bogged down in the minutiae of it. Ooh, word of the day. What I do need to do is have my colour image up in front of me, so that sometimes with a black and white copy it's a bit confusing as to what goes where. So having the colour one in front of you is always a good idea. My colour one is digital today. It's on my screen so that you can't see it. Yes, Rosie is saying that white trace down is brilliant for pastels. Yes, if you're using a coloured surface, or, of course, if you are doing this project on black watercolour paper, then you're going to need white trace down, aren't you, so that you can see it. Right, let's get the basis of that trumpet in. There we go, there's the bottom of that trumpet. And now we've got the crinkly bits. Now, this is where it gets interesting, and it's quite interesting to have this discussion anyway about how much detail you're going to put in on the frill around the edge of your daffodil. And my honest answer is you call it. You make the decision. Are you going to put lots of detail into this daffodil, or are you going to try to make it very loose? It's a tricky one to call. It does sometimes depend on the amount of time that you've got for your project. We're kind of taking this project nice, slow and steady, aren't we, at the moment? So I think we've probably got time to do a little bit more detail than less. I'm kind of tracking my way around. You'll notice that I leave gaps in my line all the time because I don't want to over describe it. I don't want it to be photo perfect, photo realistic. Let's come in there. Right, what's happening over here? What's happening over there? We've got a bit of a crinkly bit going on there. And a bit of a crinkly bit going on there. So we've got the edge of our crinkle. Another bit that's really important is to show some lines where it folds in on itself. The most important one being the edge over here, so that you get to understand what is the front edge of that trumpet and where it disappears into the middle of our daffodil. So let's get that in. Oh, we need, now one of the things that I noticed last week is how bad I am at doing stems of flowers. So I'm only going to give a sort of a rough idea of where that's going at the moment. Good morning, Mr. Dobbins. So I'm going to lift up the trace down and can see very clearly where my daffodil is. Got lovely space in front of it, which I'm liking. Only remove it when you are happy that you have got all of the trace down through, all of your transfer through. If you're a bit skeptical that you've got it all through, what you can do is make little kind of notches in the corner of your photocopy. And that is useful so that if you need to reset your drawing again, you can lay it down in exactly the same place. The only thing I would say about doing that is if you do put those notches in, don't paint over the top of them with watercolour, because then you can't erase them. That's my handy hint for the day. Chris is saying, Ali, you'd like the old Banda machines we had in school to make worksheets. They printed in purple when the machines worked. I know exactly the machines that you're talking about. My dad had a very old, old-fashioned traditional stationer's shop. So we had all sorts of machines going on. It was, yes, I would have liked them. I wish I had one now, if I'm honest. So I'm happy with my transfer. I'm going to peel that away. Now you can keep that for another day. I'm going to keep it because I have written my notes on it, and it's just kind of reminders of what it is that I'm trying to achieve. There we go. I've written stem down there in the bottom corner, and I have written up here playtime. Though we talked last week about expectations with our project. So I've peeled that away, and now I'm going to do a little bit of editing on my daffodil. I'm going to tip it up to the camera a little bit because the lights are so bright in here to light up my face of a Tuesday morning that it might look a little bit bleached out in the camera. Now, let's get good old putty eraser. Peel it out of its box and pop that to one side. Now, if you've got any scuff marks in your trace down or something's kind of got a bit awry, I have got a bit of Brusho on there, but we won't worry about that. This is the time that you can tidy it up, clean it up, and also now is the time to add anything extra back in. So I'm going to work on that stem, which I did a rather poor job of in previous daffodil demonstrations. There we go. You could, if you're not very confident about your lines, you could go back over them. I tend to go back over them and scribble over them a little bit, simply because if I have too perfect a line on my petals, I'm going to default into painting too perfectly, and that's one of my painting failings. So I kind of go back over and mess it up a bit. And then that way it doesn't encourage me to start doing my paint by numbers default setting. Now, what's that petal doing down there? What is that petal doing? That's a very odd shape. Oh, it's a very odd shape in the photo as well. Okay, we definitely need to break that up because that's way too straight. So we'll kind of mess about with that. The crinkle I think is fine. I'm happy with that. And we'll get that edge in. And yeah, job's a good one, I think. Like I said, I don't want to over describe it, otherwise we'll be in trouble. Now the next thing to decide is, am I going to leave it all free and clear like that and paint very soft edges, or am I going to create a border? And actually, for the purposes of this project, I'm going to create a border with it. And to do that, I'm going to use some framers tape. So I'm going to pull some lengths of framers tape off my reel. Oh, folded the corner over. That was a bit daft, wasn't it? I'm going to stick them about my person, maybe remove the dog hair. And then I'm going to create a border. And this is the bit where you just have to take a small amount of time to just pause. Because if you pull your tape, what will happen is you won't get a nice straight line. You'll get a weird curve on it. And actually, this is absolutely the time when the glasses need to go on and off, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I struggle to see a straight line anymore. So what I tend to do is pick it up, put it down, get the old glasses on, make sure that I've got it where I want it. Now, I'm lipping that over the top of the watercolour paper, not because I want to stick that down, but because I don't want to take up too much room. So let's stick that down there. It gives that a nice edge at the top. And then let's do our side ones. I find it much easier to lay a horizontal piece of tape than I do a vertical piece of tape. So I've turned it 90 degrees, and that way I should get a nice border. Oh, excuse me. Now, let's give our daffodil plenty of space in front of it. Oh, that's not as straight as it could be, but it's all right. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks all right. Yeah, it's a bit wonky, never mind. Wonky daffodil, that's what I'll call it. And then let's do the one on the right-hand side, a little bit closer to the flower this side. See, you can't do it vertically. You need to do it horizontally. Oh, yeah, look at that. Practically a diagonal. And let's get that in a nice straight line. That's better. Tuck those bits out of the way. We don't need those. And then what I'm going to do is run my fingernail, making sure that where the tape crosses, it's nicely burnished down, because then the paint isn't going to run underneath it. And if you are a messy pup, then you might want to mask these areas off as well. I'm actually going to leave them, because if we decide to test colours or I need to show you a particular stroke, I can do that in the spare spaces here. So there's our daffodil all prepped and ready to go. So I'm hoping that when you get to do this, you will be okay with getting it this far. This is kind of the not so scary part of it, isn't it? I absolutely understand. I get that. Now I'm going to throw something a bit peculiar into the mix. Let's get you face on so that I can talk to you. I'm going to throw something different into the mix. I use resist techniques all of the time. So that might be masking fluid. That might be where I paint masking fluid over the top to preserve my white highlights. It might be, masking fluid I tend to call a hard resist because it gives a really, really crisp line. It might be that you prefer a soft resist, so something like a wax crayon or a liquid wax, or something that you brush on, draw on, and it stays there. The trouble with using wax is that most of the time it's white or clear, so you're just preserving white highlights. Now, if you've looked at that piece of reference material, and let's show it to you again, you will soon see that there aren't really many white highlights. There are places I might choose to leave some white highlights, but most of the highlights are a bright yellow. So what is it that you can do about that if you want to go down the same route that I am? If you want to use wax or you want to use masking fluid, then do that. That's absolutely fine. It just because I'm doing it this way does not mean that's the only way of doing it, all right? But I thought we'd do something a bit different. And I thought what we would do is use oil pastel, because oil pastel is a product that is kind of, people buy, they use it a couple of times and then it gets a little bit discarded. But I love using oil pastel. I really love using it, and it's really useful with watercolour. So let's take you back to the overhead, and I'll show you 3 oil pastels that I have here. Now, it doesn't really matter the quality of the oil pastel that you have. Don't think that you've got to match mine, and don't think that you've got to match mine in colour either. You can use whatever you like. I've got Sennelier oil pastels. I particularly like the Sennelier oil pastels because they are creamy, but I have on occasion used all sorts of brands with them, so it's fine. I've got 3 colours here. That one might look white, but actually it's slightly pearlized. It's got a slight shimmer to it. I've got a kind of lemony yellow colour here, which is actually a bit grubby and has got green on it. So let's clean that up. Otherwise I'm going to get a green daffodil, which I don't want yet. Let's give that a bit of a clean. And then I've got a gold here too. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this to the surface where I don't want any watercolour to hit. So I'm reserving areas, but I'm doing it in a colour rather than masking fluid or wax or all the rest of it. Oh, we've got a very international audience. We've got America, we've got South Africa, we've got Scandinavia this morning. Everybody popping up all over the place. You're all very, very welcome. So let us use this. I'm going to pull up my photograph so that I've got it in front of me, and I'm going to look at where the brightest parts of my daffodil are. Someone's asking me to recap. What was that light oil pastel, please? There's a pearlized white, a bright lemony yellow, and a gold, which is a sort of dull gold. Just a bit of a dull gold. Now I'm going to have a look at my photo, and I'm going to go straight in with the oil pastel. Don't worry if you can't see it. I'll get close-up cam in on it very, very soon. So we've got a little bit of white in on here. I'm going to put some little bits of the pearlized white dotted around, just for the kind of lightest parts. Now, it's very, very tempting when you get the oil pastel in your hand to absolutely obliterate your watercolour paper, but please be mindful of the fact that this is going to repel your watercolour. So you don't want to put too much of it on, otherwise you're going to be in trouble getting the watercolour to cover. So I've got to be mindful of that myself rather than telling you all to do it. Now, Ruth is asking, will aquatone work? Are those the water-soluble crayons? Ruth, can you give me a bit more information on the aquatone? And I will be able to answer you a bit better. If they're oil-based, yes, they will. If they're water-based, no, they won't, because they will basically dissolve the minute that the watercolour hits them. So let's get some of this yellow in. I'm dotting it around. Whoops-a-daisy. I just need to see what it is that you're seeing. There we go, that's better. Too much technology going on today. Now, while I'm doing this, don't forget there's a little poll. There's a little poll on the page that's come up right now that says, what are your favourite yellows in watercolour? That is something that I have invited you to take part in. You click on the one that is your favourite. I'm just interested to know what yellows you guys all use. So take a vote in that poll, be part of the shaping of this project, because it's good to know, it's good to share information. Ruth is saying they are water-based, so they certainly won't work in repelling the watercolour. They need to be oil-based, but you could use some wax. You could even use a wax candle. That's the nice, simple version of this, rather than having to worry about doing anything fancy. Now we've got a bit of light coming in over here. Lots of people going, oh, I need to dig out my oil pastels. Yes, you do. They kind of end up at the back of the cupboard, don't they? Righty-ho. Now, here's my darker gold. Now, I can afford, with the darker gold, to put it in more shaded areas. It's going to give a really lovely, soft effect. And you'll see when I get close-up camera on it in just a second, you'll see how it's skipping over the surface. But I'm already starting to shape my daffodil and getting some rather lovely tones and textures in. Now, dare I do any more? No, I don't think I do, she says, doing another bit and ignoring her own advice completely. So we've got a bit in there. Let us get close-up camera in on this. So let's just get that sorted for you. It will adjust in just a moment. Gosh, it looks really dark in that camera. Never mind. You can certainly see it in close-up. You can see the marks that I have made with the oil pastel around and about. So you can see I've used a very, very light touch. Diane is saying, I bought some white birthday cake candles. They're great for wax resist because they are small. So you get accurate lines and not too chunky. Diane, that is genius. Genius suggestion. And Anita, the lovely Anita, who I was recommending earlier for her tutorials, has joined in the conversation. Good morning, lovely. So there we go. There's the close-up camera showing you the kind of marks that I have made on the surface. So that's all good to go. We've kind of done as much preparation as we need to. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? Suzanne is asking, what size is the printout of the daffodil? Suzanne, it entirely depends on the settings you have on your printer. So I have set it to A4, just slightly smaller than A4. But in your printer properties, that is where you go to decide what size you would like it to print out. So that is entirely in your control. Okay, right, done on my prep. All good to go. So now, without further ado, I need to bring out the Brusho. Why am I doing the Brusho now? I'm doing the Brusho now because if it does go slightly awry, what I can do is then cover it over in the background with my background colour. All right, it will sort of make sense. If you haven't got Brusho, don't worry, you can skip this step out. That's not a problem at all. You can go straight into the background. It's just that there were so many clamours for Brusho on the Facebook page that it would have been remiss of me to not include it. So what have I got? What do I fancy using? Now I've got two colours of Brusho here. I've got lemon and I've got gamboge. I think, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Gamboge, that's the one I'm going to go for. So just in case you don't know about Brusho, Brusho is equivalent to a powdered ink. It is incredibly enthusiastic, shall we call it that? Enthusiastic to on the piece of paper. All right, so you need to use it with caution. There are lots and lots of Brusho demonstrations around on the internet. There's plenty of Brusho demonstrations that I have done. So please do go back and watch other things. Watch any of the artist demo days that I've done. Brusho is usually included somewhere. I'm going to crack on with it this morning because we are running out of time just a little bit. So there's the gamboge. I'm going to give it a shake first. Pen is saying, would iridescent white work in oil pastel? I think that's the one I've used, Pen. I think it is. So there's my pot of gamboge. I'm opening it to one side just in case it does its exploding thing and goes everywhere on the piece of paper. Okay, and the way that I'm going to sprinkle it onto the surface is I'm going to use this, a bamboo coffee stirrer. Okay, very high-tech bit of kit. I'm going to give it a stir first to make sure that I get all the particles mixed together. And then what will happen is, because of the irregular surface on that coffee stirrer, you'll see that the particles of ink have kind of clinged, oh, not the day for grammar, to the surface. And now I can very lightly tap, she says, not tapping it lightly at all. And I'm actually going to put some Brusho in the background of my daffodil. Why do I want to put Brusho in the background of my daffodil rather than on the daffodil itself? Because I don't want my daffodil to look like a cardboard cutout, yeah? I want it to have some sort of relationship with my background. So I've sprinkled a bit on. Can you see it is the question? No, then that means it's about the right amount. And actually, this is quite a lot that I have got down today. I'm going to go back to close-up cam just so that you can see how much there is. That's quite a lot. Anybody who's worked in Brusho before will have a very sharp intake of breath looking at that, because that is quite a lot of colour. So if Brusho is something that is new to you, please have a play on a piece of paper first. Don't do it straight away on your precious Daffodil piece of paper. Unless, of course, you're up for the experiment. That's what I'm going to put as a caveat. What am I going to have at the ready? I'm going to have a piece of kitchen roll at the ready, scrunched up, ready to go. I'm going to have a spray bottle. And I'm going to have my brush at the ready. This is not a fancy spray bottle. This is one from the SAA. I particularly like these because they give a nice fine spray. I've tried all sorts of other spray bottles, little kind of spectacle cleaner ones, great big garden ones, and nothing delivers as fine a mist as these ones in my opinion. And the brush that I'm using today is the SAA's Imitation Sable brush. Most of you know that this is my brush of choice now. This is a size 10, so again, it's a bit of a Goldilocks principle. It's not too big and it's not too small. I also have, top right, a pot of water just in case I need to add anything extra to it. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that there's no excess Brusho either side of my lines. So I'm giving it a bit of a dusting. If you do find that you've put too much Brusho down, then while it's dry, take it over to a bin and tap the excess off. Okay, here goes then. Spray bottle, not too close. You'll literally just blast it away. I'm going to have it set much higher and I'm going to spritz over my surface so that I get some lovely, interesting texture start to appear on my daffodil. That's looking rather nice. I'm liking that. I like that gamboge colour. It's a sort of orangey yellow. Really doing a good job. Right. I'm going to use my brush because I'm going to move some of it with my brush, just a little bit of it. I don't necessarily want it all in its kind of sprinkled on look. And I can also take this opportunity to pull some of that colour down onto my daffodil. So I'm dotting around. I'm not thinking too hard at the moment about where colours are. I'm enjoying the process of getting something on the paper and allowing it to move. Now, one thing to be said about Brusho, the minute that you spritz it, it kind of sets. It sort of sets. So you do have to be a bit brave with it. Diane is saying a pin in the top of the Brusho lid makes a small hole and allows you to sprinkle it and avoid Brusho spillage. Yes, you're absolutely right. The reason I don't particularly do that is because I don't find enough comes out, and where ordinarily, lockdown aside, I travel all over the place, even with the pin in the lid, I end up with Brusho soup in the bottom of my box. So I don't use that particular method. And also, if you put the pin in the lid, it actually makes the lid spring when it comes off, so you can make Brusho fly everywhere. But it's horses for courses, isn't it? So I'm pleased with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just blot out the excess moisture from the daffodil itself, because I want to go straight away with my background colour to set this up ready for us to paint the main feature next week. What am I using for background colour? Terribly predictable. It's Moonglow. Moonglow is making an appearance. Never used Moonglow before? Here you go. Here is the joy that is Moonglow. This lovely, soft, grey, violety colour that splits into all sorts of colours as well. It is only a Daniel Smith colour. It's only available in Daniel Smith. My apologies that I know some of you say that Daniel Smith is a little too expensive for your budget, but use whatever you like. Use whatever you like. Oh, someone said, Joe is saying, I use small cup holder hook screwed into Brusho lids, gives a reasonable hole and also keeps the powder safe in the pot. Ooh, that's good, Joe. Like that, handy hint. Can you see how that's splitting into pink and blue now? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? I tell you what you can't see is that I've literally just catapulted my bamboo stirrer across the studio, and I've now got a line of Gamboge Brusho right across the floor. That's fun, isn't it? There's something for me to clear up later. Righty-ho, let's get in with this moon glow. Now, you could wet your background. You'll find actually that my piece of paper is damp already. So I'm going to use a negative painting technique. What does that mean? That means I'm going to paint in between my petals. So I'm painting the space around my petals, not the petals itself. The pen is saying, could you mix the pigment numbers of other makes to make moon glow? You can. I have tried it. It is close, but I struggle to get it to split in the same way. If you know what pen is talking about, you can do your research as to which pigment numbers are in moon glow and create your own version. Let me know how you get on with that. It would be interesting to know, wouldn't it? All part of the discussion. So you can see I've got a bit of water back into my moon glow, and I'm kind of making my way around my daffodil, giving my daffodil quite the atmospheric look, but that's exactly what I wanted. And I'm using my kitchen roll to dab back in to create a bit of texture too. I'm going to turn my piece of paper because I need to work on the left-hand side. If I'm left-handed, all fine and dandy, all fine and dandy. But I'm right-handed and I can't get in that way. So I might as well turn my piece of paper around and work back into it another way. So there we go, loading the brush up. This is tubed paint, incidentally, squeezed out into a plastic pan. It is the consistency of paint that I like. You might prefer it from a whole pan, one of those kind of baked pans. You might prefer it squeezed out straight from the tube. Like I said, these are all things that you need to just discover for yourself. What we try to say to do as art tutors is start off by imitating a tutor that you admire, but then if you're thinking, I don't like that colour and I don't want to use it, so don't. If you don't like it squeezed out into pans, then don't. Squeeze it straight out from the tube. These are all methods for creating your own style. I know, isn't the moon glow lovely? Isn't moon glow lovely? I mean, the other thing to discuss as to why I've used a violet in the background, if you know your colour theory, you will know that violet is opposite yellow on the colour wheel, so it's going to make those yellows really sing. That's another reason for using a violet, not just because I am the world's biggest fan of anything violet. So we've got that going on. Now let's work up, let's do a little bit more round here, round into the crinkly bits, which I'm sure have a proper name that I don't know. What you can see as well, if Brusho does elude you at times, I'm hoping what you notice is that where I've put the watercolour over the top of it, even though the watercolour is translucent, it kind of pushes the texture back, but you've got those lovely glow of colour, that lovely glow of colour coming through. I think I've got a cauliflower about to appear there. Never mind. Right, what are we doing over here? A bit of nice juicy dark in there, I think. Not entirely sure where that ends, but we'll worry about that another time. So I can bring that dark into there, I can bring it around the bottom of that petal, and I can pull that colour down my piece of paper. You can make it run off the bottom if that kind of dripping technique is something that you really like. And Arlene is asking, if you squeeze the paint into a pan, can you activate it easy enough once it's dried? Yes, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. And Pen is saying, and this is another reason for me doing it, is that it's a lot less wasteful. So you can just squeeze colour out it over and over and over again. Geraldine has noticed that, yes, I didn't wet the paper first. It's one of the reasons I didn't particularly wet the paper first, although there was a little bit of damp down because of the Brusho, was because then my darks would be nice and dramatic. Now, I'm going to need to keep that moon glow because the moon glow is also going to act as our shadow colour for the yellows. Okay, so I need to keep that and not sort of abandon it. Now I'm going to leave that alone. So let's do a quick recap. So we drew out our daffodil, we masked off a border with our framer's tape, we laid down our resist. In my case, I used 3 different colours of oil pastel. And then I sprinkled some of the gamboge Brusho into the background. And then over the top, I put a moon glow wash, just very loose, a little bit of blending out, a little bit of kind of activating with colour to create what I'm hoping looks like a nice dramatic backdrop to our daffodil. Right. I think that is plenty enough to be going on with for this week. I've tried to go through it in a little bit more detail for you so that rather than me just assuming that you know things or assuming that you understand the thought process behind it, it will hopefully give you a little bit of encouragement to break out on your own, to make your own decisions, to decide what it is you would like to do and what techniques you would like to employ. You don't have to do all the techniques. You don't have to do wax resist if you don't want to. You don't have to do the Brusho. I would recommend you do a dark background, but it doesn't have to be moon glow. It could be Prussian blue or sodalite or something really that is more to your tastes. Now, don't forget, if you have any queries about this, pop over to the Facebook page Learning to Paint with Alison C. Board, because there you've got this amazing community of people who are just itching for you to be successful, who will answer your questions, who will pose questions and go, should I do this or should I do this? And you get to have a bit of input on it. We can't meet up in person at the moment, and we certainly can't meet up as we are scattered all over the globe. So that little community, not so little now, 1,600 members over on there, is a fabulous resource for you to be able to get some advice on your current painting. If you want to access the resources, go back to last week's Technique Tuesday on my blog page. There you will find the daffodil photograph for you to download. Now, I have big news, big news, bigger than the book news, if I'm honest. First thing to tell you is that this broadcast will be available over on my website, on Ali's blog. It will be the latest post at the top, so you can revisit it, you can paint along with it, and of course you can pause me. Very useful. And you can read a little bit more about what's been going on in my week. Now, I would like to share something with you. This daffodil painting, I would like to have a home. When I have finished it, I would like it to have a home. Now, you may or may not know about the Marie Curie Cancer Care. Marie Curie is a team of amazing nurses scattered throughout the UK who provide care for cancer patients. We have in our family a relative who is a Marie Curie nurse. And this year they have put out an appeal, it's called their Daffodil Appeal, for funds because they have struggled through the coronavirus to fund any of the work that they do. So at the end of this project, I am going to be auctioning this painting. It will go up on social media and on the blog. You will be able to blind bid on it, and at the end of it, the person with the highest amount in the time frame that I set will be the owner of this painting. I will post it to you anywhere in the world, I will get it to you, and I will donate the entirety of the funds that it raises to Marie Curie Care, because it's something that's very close to my heart at the moment. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast today. If you have any questions at all about any part of the project, please do email me, downendfarmstudio@gmail.com. I will be very happy to answer them. If you want a faster answer, go over to the Learning to Paint page. You've got that whole community of people there who are just ready and willing to help you. Thank you very much if you have tuned in live this morning. Thank you very much if you are watching on catch up. I'm really itching to get to the end of this project now. We will do a little bit more work on it next Tuesday, same time, same place, 10 a.m. on Tuesday. So until then, take lots and lots of care of yourself. Stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you very soon. Bye.